Good men don't need rules. Today is not the day to find out why I have so many. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the mid-series finale of Series 6, A Good Man Goes to War. Written by Stephen Moffat and is directed by Peter Horn, a big name in directing television stories. This is, I believe, his first Doctor Who story. We will also be talking about this episode's prequel episode, as well as a semi-sequel of sorts with Battle of Demon's Run 2 days later, a short episode which aired around about midway through Series 7, which ties into what happens in that start of the series, which picks up from this adventure. This story also ties in all the storylines that have been put up into place in the first half of Series 6, with the Eye Patch Woman being revealed and her becoming a prominent role in this story. We also have the continuation of the Ganger storyline, in which Amy was replaced with the Ganger in the last story, the Almost People and the Rebel Flesh. So this continues on from that the cliffhanger from the end of that episode. So this was a really big deal when the episode aired. It was the first mid-series finale, but also it had a lot of built up to it, a lot of hype for it. There was also a massive tease onto the resolution of this story, as well as an explanation on who River Song could be. As River Song, played by Alex Kingston, also makes an appearance in the story. We also get the first appearance of Vastra, Jenny, and Strax, who would become later on the Paternoster gang and would appear throughout the rest of the Stephen Moffat era, only then to get a Big Finish spin-off series in the Paternoster gang Big Finish CD box sets. So that's really cool. We also see Dorian return out of all characters. Don't know why he's here, but he's a lot of fun. So onto it and onto that. When the story aired, it was praised for being this great bombastic story with resolutions and plot twists and tying up the Series 6, whilst also continuing on for the second half, which aired later on that year. But I do find that a lot of people either have forgotten about this story or don't rate it as highly anymore. And that could be the concept of its story, its place within the story arc. This takes place, as I stated, midway through Series 6, and it seems like from the outset that this story is mainly focuses on setting up and resolving certain elements of the storyline without telling the story in and of itself. And if that's your criticism, not only do I understand that, I also share that opinion on many other stories. And in fact, I do generally see what you're on about. And as somebody who has kind of gone off that kind of storytelling, you would think that that kind of thing goes off of me. And I think when I'm in that mindset where I don't like... I feel like this episode isn't made for me, in a sense, because I like the more singular episodes. But to someone who took the episode on its own turf, it's like, right, this is an episode which is heavily story arc heavy. You're not supposed to really watch this episode in its own little bubble. This episode does a really great job at setting up its own characters, its own world, its own settings, but also as well becoming this almost Star Wars-like environment and setting. And it really is a episode which I would have loved to have seen on the big screen. Peter Horn's directing here, like I said, he's a big TV director. This will be his first Doctor Who role, but my God, the visuals in this story, especially the first half, the pre-credit sequence, is astonishing. But let's talk about the prequel episode first. Nothing really much to discuss, really. It's just Dorian, and he's having an interaction with the headless monks. These monks that seem to be working for this religion, which at this point doesn't actually get named, but we do conclude that it's the same religion which we presumed was a sort of Christianity that was appeared in Flesh and Stones and Time of Angels back in Series 5, as we see the symbol, which highly resembles the Omega symbol, leading many fans to believe Omega was going to make a return, which never happened. Whether that was because they couldn't get the rights from Bob Baker, who knows? But anyway, we can conclude that this is the same religion as them because they use the same logo, and they're also, like that, a military organization that have based their decisions on faith and on their religion. And it seems like here they've kind of retconned them in a bit, but they fear the Doctor. In fact, it's stated quite early on that they've taken Amy's child as a weapon to use against the Doctor because they fear him so much. He is this intergalactic threat that many people find absolutely terrifying. So our first half of this, the pre-credit sequence to the main. I just realised I didn't actually talk about the prequel. I didn't actually finish the prequel. So the Headless Monks are part of this religious organisation, and Dorian, he's basically given them some technology that they need. It's coming out of a Jadoon's frontal lobe in his brain, which I was like, how it's like really tiny. He's just like, it must distract the whole brain. So he just takes a cabinet which contains presumably the Jadoon brain, and it's like a little cabinet in there. That's pretty funny. But then Dorian basically realizes that I've heard rumors on whose child you've taken, and God help you all if you've made him angry, if you're making the Doctor angry. This story is basically, the prequel basically sets up that the Doctor is on a vengeful mission, a vengeful armada to get Amy and her baby back. That's a great way of setting it. I do actually like this little prequel. It's much better than most, because though yes, it's come and taken it all, and though I do like all the prequels and decide that it's always better to have them than nothing at all, here I think is easily one of the best, because it's more screen time for Dorian, who appeared in the Pandorica Opens, in the opening of that, where he meets River Song. And here, it sets him a bit more and is a friendly reminder to audiences before the actual episode begins. So, it's actually a really decent setup for the episode. It might not be the most atmospheric of the prequels, but in terms of its own, we have Dorian, and he's this conniving little salesman, merchant, I thought. I don't know, he's just a really fun character in my opinion. But the pre-credit sequence to the main episode is where we really start kicking off, as we get this montage of Amy getting her baby taken by Madame Kavarian. We'll talk about her later on. Who's, like I said, is a part of this massive. She's basically the leader of this section of the religion, of this religion, which we later learn in the series. Spoilers for later episodes. It turns out that this is actually the Silence, the religion. The Silence actually the religion, not the name of the species. And these people are part of the Silence religion. And so. We get this montage of Amy talking to her baby, and it's like, you got to be strong, you got to be tough, because he's coming. It doesn't matter where we are, how much in danger we are, this person is always going to save your life, and he is the greatest man I've ever met. and we get this montage of that intercut with a fleet of Cybermen that are struggling to combat a certain threat into their armada. This is like a massive fleet of Cybermen ships. Now, according to behind the scenes and sources from outside the episode, these are actually supposed to be the Mondasian Cybermen. However, they take the appearance and act like the Cybermen. And if you've seen my videos prior talking about my thoughts on the Cybermen in the revived era, I personally, because it doesn't actually state anything in the story, personally consider these to be the Cybermen. They're just missing the logo on their chest. And you see someone running around, seemingly using the Doctor's sonic screwdriver, so it's presumably the Doctor, to lock doors and set off explosions and stuff. And it's intertwined with this speech, which makes you feel it's talking about the Doctor. And Amy even at one point says, it's your father, making the audience believe for a quick second that Amy might have actually slept with the Doctor and that the baby's actually the Doctor's baby. But it's not. It turns out that she was actually talking about the lone Centurion, aka Rory. This opening scene in which we see Rory just step through those doors and he's like, I've got a message from the Doctor and a question from me. Where is my wife? You've got that music that plays when the children are being taken in the episode The Next Doctor. But here the music is blasting, it's rocking, and the Cybermen are just like, what is the Doctor's message? And outside of their window, you just see things just start, cyber ships just started exploding and being destroyed left, right and centre. Now, this did actually get a bit of criticism when the episode aired, considering that, and it all ties again with what I believe is Stephen Moffat's philosophy and his opinions on the Cybermen. Because I think it's quite clear, going by his televised stories, that he just isn't a fan of the Cybermen. In the Pandorica opens, they make a brief cameo, but clearly get overshadowed by Daleks and the Autons. And here, they're only really used as an opening threat. And the fact that the Doctor doesn't really consider them that much a threat to the point where he would send Rory out to get to meet with the cyber leader, not as in the character cyber leader, but a character that's a leader of the Cybermen. And the Doctor just easily exploding and destroying, no concern whatsoever on just destroying a bunch of cyber ships. Does kind of mean the Cybermen aren't that threatening anymore, and the fact that their only appearances so far within the series have only been limited appearances. You do get this feeling during the Moffat era that he's just not that interested in Cybermen, which, it's fair enough, I'm not saying like he has to like them, but as somebody who's a huge fan of Cybermen, it is disappointing. However, in the role of the context of the story, it does mean that you have this established monster which basically is a threat, and to see the Doctor just destroy them without ease, and even Rory is just super in control, and he's just demanding to ask where his wife is, as the Cybermen have a massive data bank which can scan and designate all parts of this space within this time zone. Just shows like how serious the Doctor is at saving Amy and her baby, and so is Rory as well. Arthur Darwell here, his performance is absolutely something to behold. He really gives off this is easily Arthur Darwell at his best. By far, an exception. In fact, we'll get on to actually Matt Smith, but Matt Smith really does give it his all in this story. And so we get into then, there's the thing, but this episode feels like it should have been a two-parter as well. The story is technically part one of a two-part story which concludes within the first episode of the second half of Series 6, Let's Kill Hitler. However, personally, in my mind, they are two completely different episodes. They're just heavily linked within the stories. They're not essentially a two-parter. I see them as one part and another part. And something you can, I guess, criticize this story is that it is one part, as a lot of stuff does quickly go in through the episodes. We get a quick montage of Rory destroying Cybermen as on this mission, and then when we cut into the episode, the actual episode itself, we get this montage of Madame Kavarian and her Colonel Manson, basically trying to find information as they can about the Doctor. They actually go to Dorian at one point, and he's basically explaining, right, things have gotten pretty serious. I know about your information. The Doctor, he's taking you really serious now, and he is actually, once in his life, collecting some of his debts. All those people, some people he has saved, owe him a life debt because, he saved them, and he's like, one day I'll come back and I'll need a favour of you. It's time he collects them. As we get introduced to a bunch of characters, we get to meet the Sontaran Strax, a nurse in this war. He's actually a nurse for the human race. We basically learn through dialogue that he was once a proud and noble Sontaran that was defeated, and basically as punishment, he basically has become like a sort of advertisement for Sontarans by helping out weaker life forms, specifically becoming a nurse. Now Strax is one of the most popular characters in the Moffat area. He has the outshell of Sontaran, that brutish, single-minded, warlike appearance. However, Stephen Moffat decides to take it in a much more quirky direction, and basically this Sontaran is now a funny and a purely ironic sense, as he doesn't understand what things are in a sense. Actually, one of the first scenes is you see him hailing a kid, and he's like, "Don't worry, boy, you'll be fit in no time. And one day, when you're older, we will meet on the field of battle, and I will destroy you for the honor of the Sontaran race." He has that kind of humor. I don't think I need to explain much about Strax, as he is a very popular character within McEdam. But another thing, I guess, which some people have criticized this story, is why did they introduce new characters? Why didn't the Doctor summon characters which have previously appeared before? To that, I actually say, he does. Later on in the episode, we see him bring a character, one of the Spitfighters from Victory of the Daleks, out of all people, and also the Captain Henry from Curse of the Black Spot. They do appear in this story. But I also really like the inclusion of new characters, basically implying, because the Doctor has lived for hundreds of thousands of years at this point, he's going to have adventures that we've never seen. And this story this story has a lot of great imagination for the audiences, as there's these things that are left up in this episode which audiences can imagine, like how did the Doctor meet Strax? Did he meet him in his 11th incarnation, or did he meet him earlier on? Maybe his 9th, maybe his 6th. Hell, Strax might even be the first Sontaran the Doctor met during, I don't know, maybe even his first or second incarnations. The mind boggles. We also get to see Madame Kavarian and seemingly her maid, Jenny. This story doesn't actually state it here, which is actually something I was really surprised watching back. It's not hinted at all. This is something that was later established, but these two are actually one of the few LGBTQ characters in Doctor Who, as they're actually a couple. Jenny and Vastra. But I was kind of surprised watching back that that's not mentioned at all. Like, this, you only really see Jenny in a maid's costume, and Vastra kind of talks to Jenny in a in a madam sort of way, and Jenny does refer to Vastra as Mom. Mom is like a British, like, Madam, Sir, that kind of stuff. So that was kind of strange looking into this episode, and there's no reference to their couple relationship. It's really strange, it's really bizarre. The first actual reference is actually in the I guess the short prequel episode, the Battle of Demon's Run, the 2 days later. And basically we get this, like, basically half the episode is basically just the Doctor recruiting these characters, but Doctor himself doesn't actually appear until halfway through the episode. That is astonishing. We also see, actually one of the first glimpses really that we get to see of the Doctor is when Dorian, after he's talked with Kavarian and Mason, he basically goes and he's about to take his money and leave as his business, as he's closing down his bar, only for the TARDIS to appear. You see the doors open, and you get this silhouette of the 11th Doctor. It almost, and it's like, Dorian is just like, no, you don't need me. And the Doctor's shadow is just overwhelmingly tall compared to Dorian. It's really iconic stuff, and just shows how Peter Hoare is just a fantastic director who really knows what the hell he is talking about. We also get introduced to some of the military personnel. We get introduced to these characters called the thin one and the fat one, the thin one and the small one, sorry. This gay couple that are part of the Armada, and they also meet this, what's her name? I can't remember her name, but there's another girl there, and she basically joined this army so that one day she can meet the Doctor again. She has explained throughout multiple times in any episode that she actually met the Doctor before, back in her own planet of, what's the forest called? The Gamma Forests, which are actually apparently neutral in this war. However, she is like this fascinated with with the Doctor, and just really wants to meet him again. The only way to meet him from her point of view is to see him in battle, as in the land of the Gamma Forests, Doctor is actually a word meaning mighty warrior. So from her point of view, the Doctor's not a wise man or a healer, he's a mighty warrior, which just goes to show the concept, the ideas of this episode. In fact, when the Doctor does appear, I absolutely love it. This story just has a lot of great moments where basically Mason is revealing to everybody who the Headless Monks actually are, showing that they generally don't have any heads. But the Doctor actually, turns out he was in disguise as one of the Headless Monks, and he owns the stage, he owns the role, as he's basically just like, he gives like a time to Mason, and he's like, lights, everybody get your coat, and he puts the hood back on, the lights go off, they come back on, and the Doctor is gone, and our characters have this kind of confrontation as the Headless Monks are the Sacred Order that won't show their faces, and you've got these military forces that are looking at them, kind of scared, panicking in a way of which one is the Doctor and which one is actually part of the Headless Order. They start firing at each other, and Colonel Mason just sees what's happening and is just like, no, the Doctor's playing us for fools. So everybody just take your guns out. We will not be made fools. We surrender to the Headless Monks. We drop our weapons. We will surrender to the Headless Monks because we are not going to be played fools for the Doctor. You know, he's only just a man at the end of the day. So they drop all their weapons in peace with the Headless Monks, only for Silurians and the Jadoon to teleport into this into their base, which is named Demon's Run, and they basically just stop everything. They basically take as somebody once puts in the episode, it's the Doctor's greatest victory. He basically stops an entire army with only a handful of people dying, with the Headless Monks and maybe one or two soldiers. That's all that ever died within this section of the war between this religion and the Doctor. That is some really cool. That is just some really cool. I don't know why, I really love that. But speaking of the recruitment of the Doctor's side of the army, the Doctor gets Rory to go and pick up River Song. And River Song has this kind of strange recognizing Rory in a sense. She's kind of in awe of Rory's appearance. She knows who Rory is. Rory's just like, I don't know where we are in the timelines. Do you? Have we met? I'm not quite sure. And River Song is like, yes, we have met. Hello, Rory. But she's kind of like in awe. And then when Rory basically exclaims that Demon Run, River is just like, no, I can't arrive only until the very end. Because the Doctor is going to rise as high as he ever has and will fall as far as he will. And only then can I appear. Which kind of, again, it kind of builds up this whole idea of the story arc, the storyline, and River is just like, I have to be there only at the very end because this is the day. This is the day the Doctor learns who I am. Yes, it is kind of frustrating. Yes, it is kind of that story arc kind of, oh no, we've got to save it to the end. But I do actually feel like in this episode it does kind of work. You've already got a handful of characters. And when we actually learn what the twist is, it does kind of make sense. And also River Song being a character from the Doctor's future, it does kind of make sense because she knows what's about to happen, at least knows what should happen, what must happen. I also love how Rory becomes confrontational with her when she says that she won't come, because this is this is Rory's wife and baby on the line. So yeah, that's a really great scene. I also like when Amy, she's behind the door and she can hear her banging and she's just trying to get a weapon and she's like, I warned you, I'm armed. And then Rory's voice comes in and it's just like, she's kind of happy to a degree, but she tells Rory it's like they've taken Melody, our baby, she's taken her. And the door opens and Rory's holding the baby. And Arthur Darwell, as Rory starts crying, and we get a funny moment with the Doctor as well. But the majority of the episode, actually, the Doctor doesn't actually have a lot of screen time with Amy or Rory. Most of the episode, he's with Madame Kavarian and Dorian, and it's them that basically, they feel like they're the more authoritative figures of this crew. Amy is essentially a plot point in this story, which is a kind of a shame, but there is a lot of stuff to be had. Now, I need to take my scarf off for this. This is a serious thing we need to discuss. Because this episode is the formal introduction of a character called Madame Kavarian. Now, she is played by, I can't remember her name. However, she has become a very controversial figure in recent memory, as on Twitter, she has openly expressed her transphobic views and her transphobic ideology, and it's absolutely sickening. I remember when this episode aired, I really enjoyed the performance, and I found it a really creepy and just this kind of cheesy performance. However, now I know about the actress herself that has hurt this episode retroactively, and I'm so glad that she was kind of kicked out of Big Finish in a sense after hearing her disgusting things she has said, and it is a real big shame that one of the biggest recent Doctor Who villains turns out to be a real villain in real life. But it's something that has sadly been a lot of connections with the 11th Doctor era, with Gareth Roberts and what's his name in the Sarah Jane Adventure episode, The Man Who Never Was. A few people working in this era came out as hugely transphobic later on, and that is just not right. We at McEdam Productions, we are pro trans rights, so yeah, just want to state that. Just wanted to state that out just in case, anything blah 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 blah. So my opinions on the story don't reflect my opinions on the actress on her, and I've forgotten her name. I'm not actually going to apologise for forgetting her name, because she seems like an absolute bitch. Anyway, so actually, come to think about it, she doesn't actually have that much of a role in this story anyway. But let's talk about one of the best scenes in this story, in which the Doctor basically commands Colonel Mason to tell his army to surrender. But the Doctor's like, don't say surrender. I want to tell you to tell them to run away. And the Doctor's kind of got this quirky confidence the 11th Doctor always has. But suddenly he has this aggression. And he's like, because that's what I want people to remember you as, Colonel Runaway. I want kids to come knocking on your door, find it in the house of Colonel Runaway. And when somebody comes to you and think it's a good idea to try and hurt and take the people I love, you just tell them your name and tell them how much of a good idea it really is. Matt Smith's performance in this scene, and when Madame Kavarian comes in and is just like, good men are nothing to fear, they've got loads of rules, and the Doctor's just like, I'm not a good man, which actually, the title of this episode is kind of funny in a way, because the good man goes to war. Sure, the Doctor goes to war in this episode in a sense, but there's a lot of scenes where the Doctor clearly states he's not a good man, but there is a character in this story that is stated to be a good man, and he does fight in the general sense, in which he gets a gun, he gets a sword, and he starts kicking ass. The good man in the title is not about the Doctor. It's about Rory Williams. When I figured that out, I blew my head off. That was brilliant. Really cool diversion in there. But the Doctor is really aggressive in this, and is like, and really is just, he's completely won. He's completely won this battle, and he's told everybody in this army to just run away, get away. You do not want to see me when I'm angry. You get away from Rory, Amy, and their baby, and go as fast as you can. And so we get this kind of lull moment where our characters feel they're safe in a sense. Essentially, it really does feel like the episode is concluding maybe 10 minutes, 2 minutes after the Doctor arrives in the episode. It's really strange and bizarre, until a sudden twist arrives as the Headless Monks start coming up against to collect Amy's baby in a sense, and to try and create this war, trying to fight all of our crew members. Dorian gets beheaded, and we see his body basically become a headless monk, as we see that his top half basically swirled up, and as it kind of moves on its own. Kind of gruesome from a family-friendly show, but it's pretty cool. Also, as well, Strax gets killed in the battle. Well, he's seemingly killed. Having this pretty funny scene with Rory, which I love that scene, because Rory and the Sontaran kind of have this unique kind of relationship that they don't even realise they have, because Rory is a nurse himself that has become this soldier, this centurion, whilst we have then this warrior who has become a nurse. And it's, I don't know, I just really like the iconography there. But Madame Kavarian calls up the doctor on a video call as the doctor works out that basically the baby was conceived during Amy and Rory's first time within the TARDIS, within this reality, after it being reset in a Big Bang, which was in fact the night of their wedding, basically implying that right after that episode, Amy and Rory, they conceived a child, and that baby then has, because it was conceived during a trip in the TARDIS, has gained maybe not Time Lord DNA, but Time Lord-like genetics, which the army has tracked down and basically realised that they can basically have their own doctor, their own weapon against the doctor, a Time Lord-like individual, a perfect assassin for the doctor, in a sense. And Madame Kavarian calls the doctor up, and it's just like, fool you once was an honour, but fool you twice, it's a privilege. As the doctor kind of clicks, and we get this scene in which Amy's holding her baby before it suddenly turns into a bottle of a bottle of goo. It turns out the baby that Amy has been spending the majority of the episode was actually a flesh avatar doppelganger. And the real baby is still with Kavarian, as Amy's baby is still taken away, and they've essentially lost the battle. The tactics of battle of play in this episode is just so intelligent. It's strange how so much effort is put into this one episode. And our characters are essentially defeated. Everybody is injured or beaten to a degree. One person actually warned them that the Headless Monks are on their way, is that woman that was part of this religious army, the one who said that she met the doctor when she was young. She gave Amy this baby gift, which says the baby's name, Melody Bond, in the language of the Gamma forests. And there's this really beautiful scene, I have to talk about it, where she's dying and the doctor, she requests to see the doctor, and the doctor sees her, and she looks up and she's like, "Doctor, I met you once on the, you told me to run the first time we met. You don't remember, do you?" And the doctor grabs her cheek and he's being really friendly and kind to her. It's like, "You helped my friends, thank you." And of course I remember you. Remember we ran for so long. And she passes away. The doctor puts his head down. He turns to Madame Kavarian. Who was she? The doctor had no idea who this person is. And when Madame Kavarian is like, "We don't know, but she was brave." And the doctor's just like, "Yes, they all were." And Matt Smith's face in that scene is so expressive. That is just pure acting. Now, compare this to Journey's End, the conclusion to the fourth series of Doctor Who, featuring David Tennant and Catherine Tate. Basically, there was a scene that did a similar premise. The Doctor realizing, how much death and pain he's caused by people inspired by him. And in that story, the Doctor gets this flashback as Davros is giving this speech. Here, it's all summed up, that pain, that torture, that responsibility on the Doctor's shoulders, summed up in one line. With Madame Kavarian stating that they were brave, that she was brave, and the Doctor just saying, yes, they all are in the end. Fine wine, dears, fine wine. So, Amy is distressed, you know, she doesn't blame the Doctor per se, but she feels now uncomfortable as she kind of steps back as the Doctor tries to hug her in a sense. And suddenly, River Song appears as she basically promises that it's going to be fine. Do not worry, everything is going to work out. The Doctor will find your baby to some degree. And I know this for a fact. And the Doctor comes up to her right in her face and is just like, where the hell were you today? You could have at least tried to prevent all this. As River gives this speech, essentially stating to the Doctor, it's like, to summarise the ideas of the story. I think what makes the story much more better, in my opinion, than most story arc heavy episodes, is that this single episode has an idea, it has an iconography, it has a story here it wants to tell, and that's the story of the Doctor going too far. The idea of this villain is essentially because they fear the Doctor, and the entire story is, despite being a story arc heavy episode with all of these things that tie into each other, this episode is focused on that, and it is summarised in this speech that River Song gives, where River is just like, we get the name Doctor from you, meaning wise man and healer, which is actually a fan theory by Stephen Moffat all the way back in, I want to say 1993. So this is actually a fan theory that has come true, that in the context of the Doctor Who universe, the term Doctor comes from the Doctor, and the Doctor then gets his name from being a Doctor, so it's all wibbly wobbly tiny whiny, it's a paradox. But stating that the Doctor has essentially gone too far. He can call off armies just by the mention of his name. If he keeps going on in this crusade, what would that name come to be? Like in the names of the Gamma Forest, the Doctor means mighty warrior. So, you know, you really got to be careful. Essentially, she stated to the Doctor, you got to be careful about your own, about how people see you and how the universe sees you, because this is all about you, Doctor. This is all about how dangerous you have become. Amy and Rory wouldn't have to suffer all of this if it wasn't for the fact that you basically push your luck, Doctor. That really just summarises the episode. There's a load of great scenes that play into this idea, and it summarises here, and that's basically the conclusion of the narrative. As we get a cliffhanger that ties into the finale of the episode, as the Doctor demands who is River Song. She takes him to a cot, which the Doctor brought out earlier on in the episode. The Doctor says it's his cot, and so does River at one point. I like to think in my head it's actually Susan. The idea that the Doctor himself would keep his own cot, I find extremely bizarre. I like to think it's the Doctor's cot in the fact that he owned it, he purchased it for his kids or his grandchildren. And he's only really just messing around with Amy and Rory. Because at one point he does actually state that he doesn't have any kids. When Amy says, did you have any kids at all? The Doctor just blanks the question off, kind of implying that the Doctor's got so much pain for the memory of his own family that he just doesn't want to go in that mindset again. Really great stuff in terms of writing, and so I like to think that the Doctor said it was his to try and hint off the scent that the Doctor's actually a parent, and the idea of him remembering his family is too much of a pain for him. But the Doctor reads something and he clicks, and he has this really joyful, almost exaggerated, like he's just really quirky all of a sudden. He's really joyfully as he's like, oh, hello, River Song. It's nice to finally meet you. And he's looking at Amy and Rory. He's like, but that means, oh my God, I can't believe this. Amy and Rory, you're gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine. Everybody's sent back. Keep everything safe and sound. And I'm going to go in the TARDIS, and I'm gonna find your daughter. Don't worry, Amy and Rory, everything's going to be fine. And he just steps under the TARDIS and disappears without Amy and Rory. Amy's just like, what the absolute hell? And she gets a gun and she points it to River, demanding that she tells them who she is and where's the doctor going and where is their baby? What's all this about? And River's just like, I know exactly where the doctor is, and I know that he's going to save the baby and protect it for all his life. She basically gives the baby quilt thing that girl from the Gamma Forest gives Amy, but as River's song points out, they don't have a word for melody or pond, because the only pond in the forest is the river. And it's revealed at the conclusion of this episode that River Song is actually within the fact Amy and Rory's baby. River Song is Melody Pond. And that's the end of the episode. That was jaw-dropping. That was absolutely amazing in terms of its episode. But it ties in a lot with the ideas of the Doctor being this dangerous fella, but also I think what kind of hurts the story and why a lot of people don't feel it as favourably these days is that it ties into the larger story arc. And when we learn more about this religion later down the episode, this episode does then feel kind of strange. Looking back, especially how it's basically summed up as a joke in the episode Time of the Doctor. But that's a story for another day. Overall, this episode is fantastically great, well executed, well written, well directed. Maybe it does rely too much on story arcs, and as somebody who isn't a fan of this kind of story arc telling, I would have preferred it to be a much more singular entity. However, as a story that is this kind of storyline heavy episode, I believe, without question, that this is the best script in Doctor Who anyway, that's this kind of episode. And it's got me really thrilled that despite it being a type of episode I don't like, it does its job very well. But that's not really the end of this little saga, as we also have the prequel to Series 7. It was advertised as a prequel to The Bells of St. John. However, this actually has nothing to do with that, and actually serves as a prequel to The Snowmen, which would be the next appearance in the televised Doctor Who of Madame Kavarian, Jenny and Strax. Because Strax died in A Good Man Goes to War. However, he appears again in The Snowman and throughout many episodes in the Stephen Moffat era of the show. How is that even possible? Well, this story actually gives you an explanation. It takes place basically 2 days after, and our characters, Jenny and Vastra, have basically, they're looking after Strax as he wakes up, and they're just like, come on, get up. And Drax is just like, I can't, I'm dying, that was a fatal blast. But Jenny points out, it's just like, no, that wasn't. That was just a scratch, essentially. And not only that, we've healed you. You're completely fine. And so Strax is just like, oh. kind of has this embarrassing quirk about him. And he's just like, right, now I can go back to fight the Sontaran Empire. Thank you for your help, but I can't come with you because sadly, you're all worthless scum. That bit's brilliant. But they basically give him the offer of him joining the Patronotra gang. It's also here where we get the mention of Jenny anyway, because Vastra says like Jenny is estranged to her family because of her preferences in relationships, basically implying that Jenny's family disowned her because she was a lesbian, which, you know, that is kind of sad thinking back. That's pretty bummed me down now. And they basically offer Strax to come, and he kind of gets persuaded in a sense. And we get basically summarised this team of three, where Strax gets in the elevator and it's just like, So you two are women, right? From all my databases and information about sexual, what's the opposite of asexual creatures? I can't remember. But anyway, Straxus is like, you need a male, don't you? And they're like, no. And Straxus is just like, am I the male? No, you're not the male, at least in terms of keeping the group together. Straxus is like, okay. So now, teach me all about these dresses I've been hearing about. And the door closes, and at the end of the episode, leading into the snowman, or at least the idea of them three working together. And that is the battle of... that is basically the prequel of Good Man Goes to War, A Good Man Goes to War, and the Battle of Demon's Run 2 days later. Overall, I actually really enjoy this episode and feels like it really holds up pretty well in terms of its what the story is doing within its episode itself. It is kind of a bummer that it is a heavily tied storyline, heavy episode, and all the stuff that it ties into is vastly weak. But I feel like as a type of episode that I'm not a particular fan of, it does the best it can with it being a heavy story arc episode. So yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. Had a lot of fun, a lot of blast, and it was one of the episodes I was really looking forward to rewatching for the marathon. So yeah, Good Man Goes to War. Go watch it if you haven't. You may need to watch Series 6, however, and maybe a bit of Series 5 to get the ideas and to really feel the impacts of the story. You'll have to watch later episodes which then fall flat, so I can get why people might not like the story retroactively. But I feel like, you know, if you consider this episode as telling its own kind of adventure with the concept of the Doctor going too far, man, this story really works. So anyway, that's the prequel, Good Man Goes to War and Battle of Demon's Run 2 days later. So join me next time where we go back to K9 as the series starts concluding. I actually don't know. It's kind of weird. It's kind of hard to get information about it. It seems like, according to the Wikipedia, that it ties up. Anyway, that's a story for another day. So join me next time for Angels of the North, I believe it's called. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!